Dear friends, probe into the history of our country and we look into the various issues confronting us. We notice the personality of Zulfiqar Bhutto, shining personality in our political arena. Zulfiqar Bhutto, although he belonged to landed aristocracy and his father, Sir Shahnawaz Bhutto, was a sir and a special supporter of the British Raj and who remained a minister and a member, but he also worked for the separation of Sindh from Bombay, and he was the leader of the Muslim feudal lords, and ultimately he was defeated by Sheikh Abdul Majid Sindhi from Larkana, and then he just went away to Junagadh and India, and after Pakistan he came. But Zulfiqar Bhutto, since his young age, his education from London and then Berkeley, he became a lecturer at SM Law College and then honorary, and then he also joined the anti-one unit front with Anwar Sheikh, but within no time he resigned, left that because he wanted to make a career. And during Iskandar Mirza's days, his wife Nusrat was a friend of Naiz Mirza. He became a federal minister, and then I had a chance of meeting him at the Rodi station, and then later on he worked for Ayub Khan as his supporter, as minister and his henchman. And when Mother Abrat Fatma Jinnah stood up for the presidential election, he and Chaudhry Khaliq-ul-Jamaat supported Ayub Khan and did all they could, all fascistic methods, so as to crush the democratic movement of Mother Billat, which we were upholding, me, Mushtaq Memon, Mir Ustubash Talpur, and so many others, Habib Jalib, so many others. And before that, Hassan Nasir had already been murdered by Ayub regime. But later on, after the war of 65, on the issue of Tashkent Declaration, Zulfiqar Bhutto took a stand that Ayub Khan was betraying the national interests of the Kashmiris. And then he came to Hyderabad, I had meetings with him, and then we worked together. Later on, he organized a party, and throughout West Pakistan, he got thumping majority, and he became the Prime Minister because he did not reconcile with Sheikh Mujib, and then the administration and the army didn't wanted Mujib. So Bengal was separated, which was a tragedy, but he became Prime Minister of Pakistan. He brought the Constitution of 1973, which was formulated by my matron uncle Justice Z.H. Channa, who was Federal Law Secretary. Hafiz Pirzada was a law minister. When I was young, I was activist. I went to Pindi, I had opposed this. I said that how can we agree to constitution formula when Bengal is separated, then at least there should be new elections for the Constituent Assembly, which should formulate the constitution, not the assembly which had already lost its majority. So according to me, it was a defunct parliament, but yet it was, a constitution was passed, not unanimously. There were 4 or 5 opposition leaders like Abdul Nabi Jatoi, Makhtum Nur Band Hashmi, Kharbaksh. They opposed, but yet it was passed. It goes credit to Zulfiqar Bhutto, and he became the first martial administrator, later the civilian prime minister. During those days, again, during the elections, rigging, on the issue of rigging, there was a great movement in the country, and he was overthrown by no less a person than General Ziaul-Haq, who was adventurer, political. He brought the army rule inducted and jailed Zulfiqar Bhutto. I told our daughter, Benazir Sahaba, that Zulfiqar Bhutto will be hanged because all the Vaderas had decided to hang him, including Jatoi, Mumtaz Bhutto, Hafiz Pirzada. And I had gone to Sun to meet G.M. Sayyid with my friend, comrade Aziz Siddiqui from the Communist Party. But Sayyid Sahab refused to request General Ziaul-Haq. But then I also issued a statement that we worked hard, but it was a conspiracy. So Bhutto was executed. There was a court decision against him on a murder charge of Ahmad Raza Qasuri's father, but he was, the court had decided, not with a majority 3-2, but the General Ziaul-Haq, he didn't ask for reprieve, and Ziaul-Haq ordered for his hanging. Although Colonel Qazafi and many Muslim leaders requested for his release or his mercy. But Bhutto was a great man. He faced death boldly, and he never compromised, he never apologized, which was greatness on his part. And even then, as a Prime Minister, he had called for Islamic conference where Shah Faisal also came, Qazafi. And you see that Shah Faisal was also murdered by his nephew. Qazafi has been murdered recently. Because Bhutto took a stand on the atomic program. He took a stand against American foreign imperialism. He opened the route to China. The route to China was opened through Pakistan. It was Bhutto's decision. So in this way, he compensated for those crimes of the past, and he became popular. But no sooner he was eliminated. So this is part of our historical process. But later on, his daughter, she became Prime Minister, and still party is running. But they lost the charisma of Bhutto, and Bhutto did much for the common people by giving them jobs and by caring for them. In spite of his faults and follies, Bhutto was a great man, and I had happened to have a lot of meetings with him. He used to love me very much. But since I opposed these policies, so we could not meet each other. When he was Prime Minister, I met him for 2-3 times at Arkhana. I was on PTV as a producer, and we didn't talk to each other. But when he was in jail, I used to weep and cry for him, and I tried my best that his life should be spared, but which was not, because General Zia was a dictator. So I was so much offended as a TV producer. I resigned from PTV on 16th April 1980 from Peshawar Center. I was transferred to Peshawar. I wrote letters to General Zia that you are a dictator, you are a traitor. So inquiry was held against me, and ultimately I resigned as a protest, and in this way I stood up for him. But what can I do? It was a political process. Anyway, Bhutto is a historical personality, and today still his name is resounding, and the People Party is getting votes on the basis of his execution. But Bhutto has given us a lesson, and that lesson is this, that we should follow democratic principles. And Bhutto has said that Pakistan was made on the basis of ballot, not through force. Qaeda made Pakistan on the basis of vote in Sindh, Punjab and other places. So Bhutto took a stand for democracy. He formed a constitution, but he put so many amendments that constitution lost its shape. And all his old friends were leaving him. J. Rahim, Mir Subhash Talpur, Raj Muhammad Khan, one by one, Mubashir. He fell in the trap of the bureaucracy who had stifled his thoughts, and he was used in Balochistan in the military action and many other places. Later on, he realized, but what could he do? It was a process in which Bhutto Sahab gave his life for principles of democratic federalism and the rights of the people to a certain extent. So he was a historical person. Let us hope that Allah Almighty will salvage his soul and give redress and his name shall resound the world over. Thank you, sir. Sarmat Sufi, Dara Chuku, they were great characters of our subcontinent's history. Dara Chuku was a Sufi. He wrote Sakintul Awliya, about the history of the Awliyas, Walis. He wrote about Bibi Tufa. He wrote about Mansur Halaj. His Murshid was Mian Mir, and Mian Mir was his guide. And another gentleman from Central Asia, and when he was sick, through the glance of Mian Mir Sevani, he recovered health. So he was a Sufi. We went to Hajj, and he was the eldest son of Shah Jahan. But one way or the other, when the political struggle for power erupted, so Aurangzeb, who was the youngest, he opposed Dara. He put his father in imprisonment, and he also killed 2-3 brothers. So Dara couldn't succeed in battle at Bakhar. So through Sindh he was going to Balochistan, going to Iran like his grandfather Humayun. But he was intercepted, betrayed, followed. He was brought to Delhi, and then he was executed under the orders of his younger brother. And Sarmat Sufi was a great Sufi from Armenia and Iran. He was a Jew. He became a Muslim, and his name was Said. He came here to Thatta, and then from Thatta he took Abhichand, who became a Muslim. He went to Delhi. He has written his Rubais, which are very beautiful, and Azad Abul Kalam has translated them. When I will, in my further lecture, when I will mention my book Ode to Full Moon, I will read his Rubai, which is a very beautiful Rubai. I translated it in English, in which he says that life is futile, universe is futile. Love only Allah, love God and nothing else. leave this world, these palaces, this thing. So he was also executed by the orders of Aurangzeb at the Jama Masjid Delhi, at the staircase, and he is buried there. When I was young, I saw him in a dream that he was on the top of the fort and opposite the Masjid, Jama Masjid Delhi. I had never been to Delhi, so but I saw that. I told somebody, and they said, "Have you been to India?" I said, "I have never been, but I saw it in a dream." And I saw him that he was in that sail, but the light was light was falling all over. That was perhaps a spiritual light. Next day, the dawn, I saw an article on Sarmad and a photograph of Lal Killa, which was recently constructed. So this is something spiritual. Sarmad had come to Sindh, and Sarmad was a great poet. He was away from politics, but when Aurangzeb ordered for his murder, Aurangzeb asked him that, "Why you support Dara? I am the emperor." He said, "No, Dara is the emperor. You are a nominal emperor, Dara is the emperor." And we see that Aurangzeb, although he was not dishonest or corrupt, but he was a power seeker. After him, the Mughal Empire failed, and even Aurangzeb, as the last 25 years passed in Aurangabad as a self-imposed exile fighting against Shivaji. He couldn't do that. So Dara, Shaku and Sarmad, they are historical personalities. And Dara's Tazkir Awliya, I read it's a beautiful work in which he has compiled history about Ahmad Jam, about my village part, about Humayun, about so many awliyas, saints, about chronology of events he has given. Such a beautiful, I was impressed, how can a king, son, heir apparent be a Sufi, write so much, so much. But finally, he had wrote Majmu al-Bahrain. When I went to Lahore 2 years back, I happened to read that. I was also surprised because that Majmu al-Bahrain was much different from Tazkira, Awliya or other books, quite contrary. He was trying to unite Bhakti and Tawheed, divinity all in one. And the Aurangzeb got a chance, and the Maulvis of Aurangzeb type had a chance, and they blamed that he was supporting that Bhakti movement. He was mixing these two. Maybe that Majmu al-Bahrain may not have been written by him. Somebody else might have instilled that in his, because he couldn't defend himself. In the same way as Mansur al-Haj, when he was being executed, they said that you have written that book. He said that book is not written by me, that had been written by Khwaja Hasan Basri. But nobody listened to him, so I don't know that. But this much I know, that he had also translated Upanishad, and he had links with the Hindus. He wanted to unite the Hindus and Muslims. But perhaps his mechanism was not that strong, or he had come under, he changed his garb, or perhaps in power politics, he had perhaps kept away from the earlier Sufi. He was a murid of Abdul Qadir Jilani, and he was a lover of Jilani Sahib, but later on, perhaps he drifted. But anyway, the decision had been made by those coteries that he should not survive. But history remembers Dara, and history also remembers Sarmad. Sarmad was not a politician, Sarmad was purely a Sufi. So they are historical figures. So I think that time has come that research should be conducted on his life and works. Thank you.